I never thought the story of my life would sound like something torn out of a cheap paperback novel, the kind you find abandoned on a bus seat. But here I am, sitting alone in my dimly lit apartment, a glass of bourbon sweating in my hand, replaying every wrong turn, every mistake, every choice that led me here. And it all begins with her, Laura. I met Laura on a rainy Thursday night. I remember because I almost didn't go out that evening. Work had drained me and all I wanted was to collapse into bed. But my friend Jason insisted I come to this little jazz bar downtown. He said I needed a night to breathe. I went mostly to shut him up. I wasn't looking for anything. Not love, not even a fling. And yet the moment Laura walked in, I swear the air shifted. She wasn't the kind of woman who demanded attention. Not loud, not flashy. She moved with a calm confidence, the kind that made people instinctively turn their heads. Her hair was dark, almost black, and it fell across her shoulders in a way that seemed careless yet deliberate. When she smiled at the bartender, it felt like the whole room leaned toward her warmth. Jason noticed the way I stared. "Go talk to her," he whispered, nudging me. I laughed it off, but when Laura's eyes finally met mine, I felt pinned in place. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition, though I couldn't explain why. Something about her gaze made me think she already knew pieces of me no one else had seen. Against my better judgment, I walked over. The conversation started simple, drinks, whether the band playing in the corner. But within minutes, I found myself telling her about my work, my frustrations, my failed ambitions. Normally, I guard those parts of myself, but with Laura it felt easy. She listened like every word mattered, like I wasn't just another man rambling in a bar. And when she finally shared bits of her own life, a job in marketing, a recent breakup, her love for old films, I was hooked. We exchanged numbers that night. The next day she texted me first. By the weekend we had dinner. Within weeks we were seeing each other almost every day. It was fast, maybe too fast, but I didn't care. After years of meaningless dates and half-hearted connections, Laura felt real. My friends noticed the change in me. Jason joked that I smiled too much now, that I seemed lighter. My mother, on one of her rare calls, said she hadn't heard my voice so alive in years, and I believed them. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. But looking back, I should have seen the cracks forming even then. There were moments, small, subtle, when Laura would withdraw. A sudden coldness in her voice, a text left unanswered for hours, nights when she said she was too tired but wouldn't explain further. When I asked if something was wrong, she'd brush it off with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I told myself not to push, not to ruin what we had by being paranoid. Then there were the calls she took in another room, the messages she quickly swiped off her screen when I glanced too close. I noticed, of course I noticed, but I convinced myself it was nothing. After all, she chose me. She said she loved me. And when we were good, we were incredible: long walks, late-night conversations, laughter that filled my apartment until I forgot what silence felt like. I wanted to believe that was the truth, the foundation. The rest, I told myself, were just shadows. One evening, about 3 months in, we had dinner at her place. She cooked pasta, lit candles, put on soft music. It felt perfect, almost too perfect. Afterward, we sat on her couch, wine glasses in hand, when her phone buzzed. She reached for it quickly, almost nervously, and for a split second I saw the name on the screen. Mark. My chest tightened, but I said nothing. She silenced the phone and turned back to me, smiling as if nothing had happened. I tried to mirror it, to act casual, but inside, questions screamed. Who was Mark? Why did she look so guilty answering his call? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, every doubt I'd buried clawing its way back up. I wanted to ask her outright, demand the truth. But then she shifted closer in her sleep, draping her arm across me, and I felt trapped in my own cowardice. I chose silence. And maybe that was the moment everything started unraveling. Not the text, not the phone call, not even Mark himself, but my silence. The decision to swallow the truth instead of confronting it. Because deep down, I think I already knew. I just wasn't ready to face it. The following weeks turned into a blur of routine. Work, dinner, sleep, repeat. But underneath that dull rhythm, something in me kept pulsing like an exposed wire. Every time Emma smiled at her phone, I felt it. Every time she said she was tired and wanted to go to bed early, I felt it. One night she was in the shower and her phone buzzed on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a name I didn't recognize, Aaron. No last name, just Aaron. A simple text, "Can't stop thinking about last night." I froze, my chest tightened and my palms went clammy. I wanted to believe it was innocent, that maybe it was work-related, but the phrasing, "last night." I stared at it until the screen went dark again, leaving me in silence that felt deafening. My mind raced in loops: confront her, ignore it, pretend I didn't see. When she stepped out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, steam curling around her, I tried to keep my voice steady. "Who's Aaron?" I asked. Her face barely flickered, but I caught it. A hesitation, like the briefest crack in a mask. Then she smiled too quickly. "Oh, just a guy from work. He's been annoying me. You know how some people don't understand boundaries." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to, but my gut churned like acid. "Annoying you? That text didn't look like he was bothering you. It looked different." She rolled her eyes, brushing me off. "Don't be paranoid, Jake. You always jump to conclusions. He's harmless. I'll block him if it makes you feel better." And just like that, the conversation was over, or at least, she wanted it to be. But the words she used, paranoid, jumped to conclusions, echoed in my head long after she drifted off to sleep beside me. The next few days I tried to act normal. I laughed at her jokes, kissed her before work, texted her throughout the day. But everything felt staged, like I was just playing a part in a theater I didn't audition for. She seemed lighter, almost relieved, as if the storm had passed. But inside me, the storm was only beginning. One Friday evening, I decided to test her. I told her I'd be working late, but really I parked my car 2 blocks from our apartment and waited. My heart hammered in my chest like a war drum. Minutes dragged into hours, and I started to feel stupid, like some desperate teenager spying on his crush. But then, around 9, I saw her leave. She wasn't dressed casually. No, she wore the dress I bought her for our anniversary, the one she swore she was saving for a special occasion. She didn't take her car. She walked quickly, heels clicking against the pavement, until she met him. Aaron. I didn't need an introduction. The way she threw her arms around his neck told me everything I needed to know. It felt like my ribs cracked inward. I couldn't breathe. Watching them together was like watching my entire life unravel in front of me. I gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm over there, to tear him away from her, to scream in her face. But another part of me just sat frozen, numb, because seeing it with my own eyes left no room for excuses. They disappeared into a bar down the street, laughing, leaning close like lovers who couldn't stand to be apart. I didn't follow them inside. I couldn't. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, headlights blurring through tears I didn't even realize were falling. By the time I returned home, it was past midnight. The apartment felt alien, like it belonged to strangers. I sat in the dark living room, waiting. At 2 a.m., the door opened. Emma tiptoed inside, heels in her hand, hair a little messy. She didn't notice me at first. "Fun night." My voice was low, steady, but sharp enough to cut glass. She froze, then slowly turned. Her eyes widened just for a second before she pasted on a smile. "Jake, I thought you were working late." I stood, my whole body shaking. "Don't lie to me. I saw you. I saw him." Her face drained of color. The mask slipped, and for the first time I saw the truth flicker in her eyes: guilt, panic, maybe even fear. But what she said next knocked the air out of me completely. "Jake, it's not what you think. It's complicated." Complicated. The word burned in my chest, as if betrayal needed nuance, as if the knife in my back required explanation. "Then explain it," I said, voice breaking. "Because right now all I see is you with another man. wearing the dress I bought you, smiling like you never smile with me anymore." Her lips trembled. She took a step toward me, then stopped. And in that hesitation I saw it, the choice she was about to make. And it wasn't me. I wish I could tell you that I handled everything with dignity, that I cut ties and never looked back, but the truth is far uglier. When a woman like Clara has her hooks in you, logic doesn't stand a chance. I was addicted to the storm she brought into my life. Even after I saw her wrapped up with another man, some twisted part of me craved her. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was fear of being alone, maybe it was just the intoxicating chaos she represented. Whatever it was, I didn't walk away, not yet. A week later, she showed up at my apartment like nothing had happened. Her hair was pulled into a careless bun, mascara smudged beneath her eyes as though she hadn't slept in days. She didn't knock timidly. Clara never did anything timidly. She pounded on the door until I opened it, my chest tight with a mix of fury and longing. "Don't slam the door in my face," she said before I could speak. "Please, just let me explain." I should have told her to get lost. Instead, I stepped aside and she walked in as though she still owned the place. The smell of her perfume filled the room, igniting memories I wanted so badly to erase. She stood there, hands trembling, eyes glistening. For once, she didn't look like the untouchable goddess I'd fallen for. She looked broken. And God help me, I still wanted to fix her. She swore that the man I'd seen her with was a mistake, some drunken lapse in judgment. She said she'd been lost, confused, afraid of how much she cared about me. Her words came fast, desperate, tangled in apologies. "You're the only one who matters," she whispered, reaching for my hand. "You're the one I want, not him. Please believe me." I wanted to hate her. I wanted to scream until my throat gave out. But instead, I found myself pulling her into my arms, burying my face in her hair, convincing myself that maybe, just maybe, she was telling the truth. That night, we fell into each other again, like two people trying to drown out the world with heat and skin. And for a few fleeting hours, I believed her. I let myself believe. But the cracks never really sealed. I became paranoid, checking her phone when she left it unattended, reading into every delayed text, every shift in her tone. I caught myself driving past her workplace on nights she said she was working late. Each time, I told myself I was being crazy, that I needed to trust her. Yet the pit in my stomach never went away. The fear had rooted itself too deep. Then came the night that changed everything. Clara and I had plans to meet for dinner at a little Italian place we both loved. I showed up early, thinking I'd surprise her, only to spot her across the street, arm in arm with the same man I'd seen her with before. My heart froze. They weren't sneaking around, not this time. They were laughing, comfortable, like a couple who had done this 100 times before. She looked happy, freer than she ever did with me. And in that moment, it all clicked. She hadn't slipped up once. She'd been living a double life, feeding me lies while keeping him in her orbit all along. I should have turned and walked away. I should have let it end there quietly, but I didn't. I followed them. They didn't go into the restaurant. Instead, they disappeared into a side street and I trailed behind, my pulse hammering, every nerve in my body electric with rage. When they finally stopped in front of an apartment building, I saw her kiss him. Deep, passionate, the kind of kiss she used to give me when we were still new. Something inside me snapped. I confronted her right there on the sidewalk. My voice shook as I called her name, and when she turned, her face went pale. For the first time, she looked afraid of me. Not because I'd ever hurt her, I never would, but because she'd been caught in a lie so big it couldn't be undone. The man beside her tensed like he was ready for a fight. Clara, always quick on her feet, tried to spin it. "It's not what it looks like," she stammered, but the words sounded hollow even to her own ears. I laughed, a raw, broken sound that felt like it tore out of my chest. "Don't insult me, Clara. I'm not blind." The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't mean for you to find out like this." That was it. That was her excuse. Not that she hadn't betrayed me, but that she hadn't wanted me to see it. The cowardice of it cut deeper than the betrayal itself. And yet, Even then, even in that humiliating moment, I loved her. God help me, I loved her. I left her standing there, tears streaking down her face, the other man's arm still around her shoulders. I walked away into the night, each step heavier than the last, my heart shattering with every block I put between us. I thought that would be the end. But the truth, that night was only the beginning of the darkest chapter of my life. I'd like to tell you that after learning the truth, I did the honorable thing, that I packed her bags, handed her the key she left on my dresser, and closed the door behind her forever. But real life isn't that clean. Real life is messy, cruel, and full of indecision. When I confronted Emily, she didn't break down and confess right away like I expected. She didn't beg for forgiveness or even deny it with wide-eyed innocence. No, she looked me dead in the eyes, lips trembling but chin held high, and said, "Yes, I slept with him." The air was sucked out of the room. My chest tightened until it felt like a vice. For a moment, I thought I might collapse right there on the kitchen floor. But she didn't stop there. She leaned forward on the counter, her voice low, almost whispering, "But it wasn't what you think." I laughed. God, I laughed so hard it scared me. My voice echoed against the walls and I sounded like a lunatic. Not what I think. She just admitted to tearing apart the one thing I thought we had, trust, and she wanted to redefine it as something else. But then she started talking. She told me about nights when I'd been too tired, too distracted, too wrapped up in my own head. She painted pictures of loneliness, of lying awake next to me while I turned to the wall. She said Mark, of all people, had been there for her when I hadn't, that he had listened, that he'd made her feel seen. The words cut deeper than the betrayal itself, because the awful truth was, I recognized some of it. I had pulled away, hadn't I? I'd been so afraid of losing myself in this relationship that I hadn't noticed she was already slipping through my fingers. Still, none of it excused what she had done. I told her that. I raised my voice, slammed my fist against the table, but she didn't cry, she didn't grovel. She just stared at me, almost daring me to throw her out. And maybe that's why I didn't. Instead, I told her to leave for the night. She hesitated, asked if that meant we were done. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She gathered her things, and for the first time since she moved in, the apartment felt cavernous. That night I sat on the floor of my living room, staring at the ring I'd bought months earlier. I'd imagined proposing on the cliffs near her favorite hiking trail. I'd pictured the way she'd cry and laugh at the same time, how we'd tell our parents, how the future would finally feel solid. Instead, the ring sat in a box, mocking me. The days after blurred. She texted, she called. Sometimes she showed up at my door and I let her in. Sometimes I didn't. When I did, the conversation swung between shouting matches and fragile truce. I hated her. I loved her. Both emotions lived side by side, tearing me in two. Then came the twist I never saw coming. Mark reached out, not with an apology, he didn't have the guts, but with a warning. He told me Emily wasn't who I thought she was, that she'd lied to me and to him, that while she was with me, she'd also been meeting someone else entirely, a stranger neither of us knew. I didn't believe him at first. I thought it was a desperate attempt to deflect guilt, to make me share his burden. But then he sent proof, a string of screenshots, messages between Emily and another man, sweet words, photos, plans for weekends I thought she'd spent with her mother. My stomach dropped so violently I had to sit down, betrayal upon betrayal, a labyrinth of lies. It wasn't just one mistake, it was layers, a pattern. When I confronted her with the evidence, she finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she admitted it. She told me she didn't know why she did it, that something in her was restless, hungry, never satisfied. She said she had loved me, had, past tense, but that maybe she wasn't capable of being the woman I needed. That admission crushed me more than the cheating, because in that moment I realized she wasn't fighting for us anymore. She wasn't even fighting for herself. She was letting it all burn. I should have walked away. Every bone in my body screamed for it, but I couldn't. Not yet. Some sick part of me wanted answers, closure, something that would make sense of the chaos. So I told her to stay, one last night, one final chance for truth. And as she sat across from me, mascara streaked down her cheeks, she said words that would haunt me forever. "There's more you don't know." And that was when the real story began. I wish I could tell you that after discovering Emily's betrayal, I found a clean resolution, like some neat bow you can tie around a story before you put it on a shelf. But life doesn't work like that. It drags things out, makes you sit with the ache longer than you thought you could bear. For weeks, I walked around like a ghost in my own skin. Every street, every bar, every little corner of the city had her fingerprints all over it. The cafe where she used to order an oat milk latte with too much cinnamon. The bookstore where she pretended to read poetry while secretly scrolling on her phone. Even the cracked tiles in my own bathroom reminded me of the mornings we brushed our teeth side by side. It was suffocating. I didn't tell anyone about Daniel, not at first. I didn't want to hear their pity or worse, their advice, because advice never fits. People always think they know what's best. Move on. You deserve better. She wasn't worth it. Those words sound nice, but they don't land right when you've built your life around someone, when you've memorized the sound of their laugh and the way they snort when they find something truly funny. But here's the cruelest part. Even after everything, I still loved her. That's the part people never talk about. You can know someone destroyed you, and yet your heart still aches for the same hands that broke it. It's like watching your own house burn down and realizing you left your favorite photographs inside. You hate the flames, but you also want to run straight into them. She tried to reach out. Not immediately, Emily was too proud for that, but eventually the messages started. First, a casual text, "Hey, how are you?" Then, a voicemail where her voice cracked just enough to sound human again. And finally, late-night calls I never answered. She became the ghost haunting me, though I wasn't sure who was haunting whom anymore. The twist came a month later. I ran into Daniel. It wasn't planned. I was walking out of a bar, half drunk, half numb, when I saw him standing by his car. He looked different, tired, worn out, like betrayal had aged him too. He froze when he saw me, then muttered something about how it wasn't what I thought. But here's the thing. It was exactly what I thought. His guilt was all over his face. He told me he and Emily weren't even together anymore. "It got messy," he said. "She's complicated." And then he actually had the nerve to ask me if I missed her. That was the moment I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to before. Emily wasn't some tragic victim of her own desires. She made choices. She broke promises. She took something sacred and treated it like it was disposable. That night I went home and listened to one of her voicemails. She was crying in it, begging, saying she was confused, that she didn't know why she did what she did, that she wanted another chance. My thumb hovered over the callback button, trembling. For a second, I almost gave in. Almost. But then I thought about the man in the mirror, me, hollow-eyed and broken, and I knew I couldn't crawl back into the fire. So I deleted it. Closure didn't come all at once. It came in pieces, like tiny scraps of paper scattered on the floor. A laugh at a joke from a coworker that didn't feel forced. A morning where I woke up and didn't immediately think of her. A song on the radio that once ripped me apart but now only stung a little. Healing is boring, honestly. It's not cinematic. It's just time and silence and long nights where you finally sleep without dreams. But here's the last twist, the one that still haunts me. Sometimes when I walk down the street, I swear I see her. In the crowd, at a cafe window, turning a corner just out of reach. And in those fleeting moments, my chest tightens, like maybe the story isn't over. Maybe it never really will be. Because the truth is, betrayal doesn't end a love story. It just rewrites it into something darker, heavier, and far more permanent than I ever imagined. And now I carry that story with me, etched into every scar, every hesitation, every glance I give to someone new who might someday hold my heart. I tell myself I'll be stronger, smarter, less blind, but deep down I know I'll always be waiting for the next twist.